tonight after being rescued by the Coast Guard and brought to Wilmington. The two men called for help on Tuesday when their 32-foot sailboat started sinking about 100 miles off our coast. A Coast Guard helicopter crew out of Elizabeth City got to the scene and hoisted the two men off the sinking boat.
And that's the video you're seeing right now. Both men, we're told, are okay. The Salvation Army helped provide clothing for the men once the Coast Guard did bring them here to the city.